said, my name is Alice Duff. I'm the Customer Success Manager for Norfolk County Council. Now, all of you have a Customer Success Manager, and a Customer Success Manager's job is to make sure that you're getting the most out of the systems that you've procured through Esri. So I've been looking after Norfolk, and that's why I'm here today with my Norfolk hat on. Looks great. So the title of the presentation is Norfolk County Council School Transport Commissioning for Vulnerable Children. So just a bit of background about Norfolk itself. So it's a really large rural county, as I'm sure you're all aware. They currently spend £10 million annually on transporting 2,000 special educational needs children back and forth from school. So this is a mind-boggling number, and it's partly because Norfolk is a really large rural county, so there's 900,000 people living in 2,000 square miles, so it's quite sparsely populated. So because of that, you're always going to have high transportation costs, but equally, it's a lot of money. And so at Norfolk, there is an information management team who are in charge of all the data and where it sits and how it works and stuff like that. And within the information management team sits the GIS team. So the GIS team at Norfolk, what they do is they will go out to the business, identify areas for saving. They will then go away and do proof of concepts, then actually sell those back into the business. So their GIS teams can usually be quite reactive. They're quite proactive in that sense. And I think that they heard the figure of £10 million annually and thought there must be something we can do, because intrinsically it is a geographic problem. There are some people here, they need to go over here. Surely by mapping that out, we're going to get some, better information. We're going to be able to make some savings based on that. So what actually is the problem? So there are 2,000 special educational needs categorised children living within Norfolk, and all of those need to go to a school that can cater for their needs. If money was no object and there was no such thing as austerity and everything was great, then every child would get their own car and they would be sent to school and taken back from school safely and securely, and it would all be great. And they also would be sent to the nearest available school to them, so we don't want to have, it's a bit of a shame to have a child travelling an hour and a half to school in the morning and then the same back in the afternoon, so it'd be great if that wasn't the case. But unfortunately, everything's complicated. So here we can see that we are in times of austerity. People need to be making savings and running as efficiently as possible. Children need to share transportation back and forth from school. It could be that there are some children living in the same street, going to the same school. It's crazy for them not to share transportation if that's appropriate. Another problem with the issue itself is that some children, when they're first classified, they are sent to the nearest available school that meets their needs. And it could be that the nearest available school is 2 hours away, but that's the only school that they can go to, so they're sent there. And then because of the manual approach, which I'll go into a bit later, they're just sort of stuck there. It's like a legacy thing that child is just carrying on, go to that school. No one's being made aware that, oh God, this isn't right. So how it used to look, so what they were doing until January of this year, before the GIS team got involved and did all this whizzy business, it was a completely manual approach. So when a child was classified as having special educational needs and they were going to need to move to a special educational needs school or a facility, they would run a text-based report for each child. So they'll have 2,000 text files to peruse through. And then every year they would also do a paper map-based analysis. So that's when you can say, okay, these children do live next to each other. They are going to this school, so they can share transport. But as we know, people move around and, data is changing all the time. Children aren't just moving around from year to year. It can be within a school year as well. And also another problem with this was that not only was it only run once a year, but a lot of it relied on local knowledge, and as we all know, it's not great to have all of the best ideas stuck in some guy's head, and then when they leave, you lose all of that local knowledge about what kids could be sharing transport and what schools they could be going to and stuff like this. So what did the GIS team do? So as part of a wider project at Norfolk County Council, they created a data warehouse, which is what it sounds like, but basically it's a huge, huge, huge database that sucks in all of the data from all of the different systems all around the entire authority, so whether that's benefits, parking fines, whatever it is, special educational needs, transportation, sucks it in, chops it up, puts it into a readable format, and then it sits in this huge database. That means that the data is available for everyone to use in different systems, and it's readable in different formats. That's a really important point because you need the data to be able to do things. So then once they'd got the data into this big, huge database and the data was being analysed, within that, the GIS team categorised the children into 4 different categories. So the best case scenario, which is most cost effective for the authority, but also better for the child, is that the children are sharing transport and attending the nearest possible school. So it's low cost in terms of the transport, but also it means that the child isn't commuting for 3 hours a day to get back and forth from school, which, I don't want to do that. So, and then the worst case scenario is a child isn't sharing transport. Sometimes it's not appropriate for a child to share transport depending on needs, but a lot of the time it is, and we need to identify who those children are. And also they're not attending the nearest school, so that's the most expensive for the authority, but then equally it's terrible for the child. And then we have the other options of a child isn't sharing transport but is attending the nearest school, okay? Or the child is sharing transport and not attending the nearest suitable school. So again, there might be reasons behind those, but it would be good to identify them. What the team then did was they built a JavaScript application that sits on top of their big, huge data warehouse and shows the special educational needs team, so the people that work in the office, what children are in what category, where they are, what schools they could be going to, and stuff like this. So if you imagine going from 2,000 individual text files to a proper application that, displays all of the information for you, that's great. So just an architecture slide, just because I can, on what it looks like. So at the top, we've got our source system, so that's where they're doing the special educational needs work originally. That's their manual system that they're using. That's loaded, it's extracted and loaded into the data warehouse. It's all chopped up, it's analysed, it's all catalogued into the different categories that we looked at earlier. And then they have built a custom web service that looks at that database. So they didn't want, they wanted it to be as secure as possible so that no one could get access to it. So they've built a feature service in JSON. That web service is then pulled into their JavaScript application that they've built from scratch. It looks great, I'll show it to you in a moment. And then they also have the base mapping, so SD, ArcGIS server, just serving the base maps there. And then, so what does it actually look like? So I'm not sure if you can see it too well, but we obviously can't show a live version because no data is more sensitive than where vulnerable children live. So this is just a dummy data mock-up for some press that we've been doing. So you can see, I might have to leave around. So the grey dots, those are the schools. So you can click on a school and you can see some information about it, or you can select from a drop-down. In the top left-hand corner, this is where we have some information about the school itself, so all of the different breakdowns. So what kind of school is it? How much money is that school spending per year on transport? This school is spending £450,000 on transporting those children back and forth from school. So if they could make a saving, it's just huge amounts of money that we're talking about here. Imagine all of the great things that they could be doing with that money in this context. Only 58% of children attending that school are attending their nearest school, so I'd say that's quite low. But then 90% of the children attending the school are sharing transport, so that's quite good. So we'd look at different things for this school. And then along the bottom, sort of, you can see the different categories of children. So the pink dots with the white circle have shared transport and they're attending the nearest school. So this is the best case scenario. So there are 2 of those only, just underneath the school itself. And then we have all of the other options. So our worst case scenario, single transport, not attending the nearest school is the blue dot with the black circle around it. You can identify loads of those. But then what we can also see are, look at all of these children around the outside. Some of them aren't even on the map because they're traveling so far to school that you can't even see them. So surely there is something that we can do to identify where we can see them on the map. Could they be going to a closer school? Could they be sharing transport? Is there something that we can do? So how does it help? So Norfolk County Council built this application in January 2016, and so far they're on for their savings target of saving £500,000 in the first year just by making this process more efficient, which I would say is a mind-boggling number. It's a lot of money to save in a year. Next year they're looking to save £250,000, so we're talking like huge numbers here. And then, of course, improving the well-being of the pupils themselves. You don't want to be in a traffic jam for an hour on your commute to school. You want to go to the nearest school with your friends and you want to share transport and stuff like this. So I think that it will have improved the well-being of those children as well. So future iterations, what are they going to move on to next? So adults with special needs is the exact same problem. So you have adults, they live somewhere, they need to go to a care facility. Okay, maybe it's not every day, but they're still being transported there. They need to go in some transport. So it's the exact same problem. So they're going to start pulling that data into either this application or a different strain of the same application. And then also, quite interesting, I think, school planning. So we can see on this map, this is the application again, we can see on this map where all the schools are. We know where all the kids are. Now that we have this data, if we're looking to build a new school and we don't know where it should be, we can actually do some analysis on this data that we have maybe in an application so that the special educational needs team can do it themselves instead of the GIS team. And we can identify, okay, there's a big gap over there, loads of children live there, maybe it'd be good to place it there. Equally, there are lots of schools that seem to be right on top of each other. If they're serving the same need, do we need to move that school? Do we need that school? And stuff like this. And it's just amazing how you can take data that they already had, and by putting it into a graphic interface, they haven't done any analysis on this data, they've just made it available to people. You can start doing amazing things with it. So what's next? So there's been a bit of press around this. So in the latest copy of Think GIS, on the back page, there's Norfolk County Council. We've got some quotes in there, and you can have a closer look at that terrible image of what the application looks like. This year, Norfolk won an award at the Customer Success Awards at our annual conference in London. So this happened because I went into Norfolk just to say hello and how are you doing and stuff like this. And I asked, is there anything cool or interesting that you guys are doing that you think, you know, you'd like to tell me about? And they just brought this up in conversation. And I was like, stop, what are you doing? That's amazing. And so basically, I pestered them for 6 months to enter into the Customer Success Awards. So if I email you enough times, you will do what I say. And the guy didn't think he would win. He thought it was ridiculous. He thought, well, this is just my job. This is just what I do every day. It's not special in any way. He won. He couldn't believe it. And it's just about the fact that you guys are almost definitely doing some really amazing, interesting things that you think is just your day-to-day job, that you don't think is special at all. But tell us if you want us to do, some press around it, if you want a case study done, if you just want to talk at a conference. Let's get all the amazing work that you're doing out there, because people don't know. There's a couple of blogs out. They'll be circulated around on social media. And then the Think GIS article as well, I would encourage you to have a read of. So One, are there any questions? But two, a caveat in that I didn't do any of this work. I'm just presenting on it, but I might know some things. So if you have any questions, if you want to let me know, or if not, if you want to be put in contact with the team that actually did any of the work instead of me, then come up at the end, get my email address, and I'll put you in contact. They're more than happy to help. Great.